So Cindy, so from the outside, like your claim to fame is, from what I can see, and you can correct me, a Toronto Beach investor and in and around that area. I've seen you do lots of projects, lost century homes, and you renovate like high end, like modern stone countertops wherever you can, stainless. Uh, you're using top end materials, and you're getting higher rents than like anybody. Like you were like a pioneer in that. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Is it?
No, you're right. In fact, when I started in the southeast end of Toronto, so Upper Beaches, Riverdale, Leslieville, all that area, Little India, Gerard Coxwell,
Mhm,
I definitely will say that I was the one setting the market rents.
mhm,
Nobody charged what I was charging, but there was also not a lot of product like what I was producing. So there was no new condos
mhm,
in and around that area like there are now. People were doing renovations, but they were mostly just doing a slap a coat of paint and
mhm,
maybe getting some Home Depot cabinetry. I was taking it just a step beyond that, and I was putting in the beginning. I wasn't doing granite or Corian or whatever countertops,
mhm,
but after a couple years, when the competition started to heat up a little bit, I did start to do that, and then it
mm,
just evolved and evolved. And so I was always
right.
looking for ways to make my properties more unique. So I was exposing brick walls or chimneys, or doing polished concrete floors, floor mounted bathtubs, which was, I mean, that's such a beautiful thing. Why
Mhm,
can't you in a rental? You only
mhm,
see them in $1 million homes usually. They're not that expensive, they're easy to do. So it was just little things to make the units more attractive, more unique. So I really always felt like in order to keep yourself set apart so that you can charge those rents, you really have to be unique. Like
mhm,
to just do what everybody else is doing and hope you get an extra $100 or $200 a month,
mhm,
you're going, you're not going to do it
right.
unless the market just happens to be going crazy, skyrocketing. But for me, I was just pushing all my clients because it wasn't just my own properties, but I was pushing them to be a little better. So
Mhm,
don't, use a Home Depot cabinets. I have a custom kitchen guy, or, IKEA at the very least. Be modern, be what they're looking for in those downtown condos. We really looked to see what condo developers were doing, and we were doing at least that and then adding more character. Because for me, when I looked at the market and I did my studying and my analysis on renters and meeting thousands and thousands of renters over the years,
mhm,
sure, a lot of them like the condos for various reasons. They like to turn the key and go travel for a month if they want, or
mhm,
they just don't want to be bothered with the mundane day-to-day household chores of owning a home. But there is a huge population of renters that do not want to be in a concrete jungle. I was
mhm,
one of them when I first moved to Toronto. I did it, and then I really wanted to be in a house. I wanted to have an apartment in a home or in a building that wasn't a high rise. And there's a huge market of renters who are looking to be very close to downtown, so they're not a long commute away from work, but they have they come to a home. They come home. They
mhm,
leave their phone in the car. They don't have to go into an elevator and down 17 floors to get their phone. I mean, they just walk outside.
yeah,
They have a dog. They can just run outside and go to the local park in the front yard, backyard. Like it's so much easier.
yeah.
And then those are also the people that are buying too. So when they move out of condos, what's the next step for someone who's in a 500 or 600 square foot condo? It's to buy a house with a basement apartment potentially, so that they
Mhm,
can afford the extra mortgage payment with $1,000 or $1,300 coming in rent below them. So I really was focusing on that target market of people who appreciated houses,
mhm,
appreciated neighborhoods, being part of a community, and also they were willing to pay a little bit more than market rent.
mhm.
My rents were never market or below ever. So
Did you ever run the numbers with the what your competition was doing? If they just did lipstick, did the numbers work for you, or did you have trouble renting? To give you some context, there's a campaign right now. Um,
yeah.
yeah, you know what I'm talking about. We won't
No,
name it.
you can talk about it.
We
Yeah,
won't name it,
you
but
can
you know what I'm talking
name it.
about.
Repositioning.
No, it's just um, it's okay. So these tenant advocacy group is accusing landlords of renovating uh, really nice to price people out. Um, but I'll, my own example is my St. Catharines property, if it was, it looked, to me, it was fine, but I wasn't renting. So then I did stone countertops, new backsplash, some new cabinets, stainless steel appliances, and then it rented.
Yeah, we call that syndifying. You syndified it.
But to me, this was just what the market wanted. People didn't even negotiate with me on price. Like, it wasn't the price that was the issue; it was the appearance of the property. So, like, what's your experience like? Does the lipstick reno will you get tenants?
Absolutely, you'll get tenants.
Okay.
What I was looking for in my tenants and what my clients were looking for was a tenant profile that would become a homeowner relatively soon. And we were okay with the fact that they would only stay 1 to 3 years. We weren't looking for a lifetime tenant. And when you have lower rents, people say, I dropped my rent and I got a great tenant in there and they're going to stay for 20 years. And I'm thinking, okay, but you dropped your rent. So now every year your rent increases less because your rent is lower. You don't have the opportunity to turn over that tenant with a new market rent in 2 or 3 years. You're stuck at $1,400 a month for a 2-bedroom when you could have got 18 just because you thought it was better to drop it to get someone in faster and to get someone in who was going to stay longer. My investment strategy is really polar opposite. I'm fine if they leave in a year, and I always told them, look, I'm a real estate investor. I help people analyze properties for a living. I do consultations and inspections for people on houses to teach them how to, bring them up to a better market value to get higher rents. If you want to buy a house, you want my opinion, you send me the link. I'll come see it with you. Like I always told that to my tenants because I encourage them to go buy. Why not? Everybody should own, right? Yeah. And I know I don't have them forever. So I could have done lipstick. I could have got lower rents or market rents. But for me, it was always about maximizing cash flow because the more cash flow I had, the more presentable I was to the bank, the more mortgages I could get, and the more portfolio I could build. And, it was a challenge. I love a challenge. So when I saw a property, to me, it was not just about making it presentable. My mantra was always, if I wouldn't live in it, I am not going to rent it. So I really wanted every unit that I have, I would live in it. I look at it, I'm like, yeah, it's totally awesome. I live here. But if it was just, if I was just slapping paint up and I would be like, I don't know. If it's not going to suit me, it's probably not going to suit my tenant profile.
Do you remember what your rents were when you started? And so tell us what year it was when you started syndifying.
Okay.
And where have rents gone?
14, how many years ago? Erwin, you should have prefaced me on that one. I think it was about 14 or so years ago that I started renting, say, a basement apartment in Leslieville. And I think I rented it to him for $900 a month.
Ooh, it was great.
It was good, right? Yeah. It was a junior 1-bedroom. So it didn't even have a door on the bedroom, but it was, a separate bedroom. The laundry was actually in the bedroom, which I never do now, but that was the only place for it at the time. It was a very small apartment. And I remember I gave him a price increase like a couple years later, because back then I wasn't doing the annual increases every year. Kind of like I really liked him. He used to take care of my cat when I wasn't home, so it was in my own dwelling. Okay. And I said, hey, it's been a couple of years. I wanted to give you a rent increase. And the government increase this year is like, $17 or something crazy. And he goes, honey, how about I just give you $9.50? And I went, really? He goes, yeah. I go, okay, sure. If you want to give me $9.50. He goes, yeah, no problem. And I'm like, okay. So then, eventually his rent went up little teeny bitty increments. But that same apartment, when he left, I think I was getting $1,050 or $1,075. I think I just leased it for $1,500. And now it's plus utilities. Back then it was utilities included. So that's where the market's gone from, say, $900 a month to $1,500 a month plus utilities. So $900 inclusive to $1,500 plus utilities. Now you look really concerned, Erwin.
Oh, because I had to pull out a calculator. The math is too hard for me.
It's still right. But that same house has gone up. I bought it for $381,000, and it's now worth, 1.15.
381 you paid, and it's worth 1.1. Gee.
Yeah, and I think my monthly rent for the upper unit, which is the 3-bedroom upstairs in Maine, it's got a loft as well. I believe I'm getting around 3,200 a month plus utilities, but he's been there for 3 or 4 years now. So it's not
Okay.
bad.
So
The cash flow doesn't work.
so
But that's the whole point. It's all about the cash flows working. When I first began, I remember one of my other properties that was around 380 purchase price. There was 2 units in it. One was a 2 bedroom, one was a 1 bedroom. The 1 bedroom upper I was renting for about 1150, and the main floor basement, the bedrooms were in the basement. I was getting around 1350, 1400. They were plus utilities, but now those units are like 2000 and 1500. So, again, that they go up with the values of the homes, and you still make your requisite cash flow. It's not as good as it used to be though, because you bought a house for 380 and your total cash coming in on the home was 3,500 to 3,800, plus they paid the utilities. You were laughing all the way to the bank. So I could easily squeak out $1,000 to $1,500 a month net, like after all my expenses, and even my management fees and stuff were set aside. But now it's much harder for investors, and that's why it's so much more important for them to really consider the financial aspect of buying a home before they buy it, and to get advice from people like yourself and myself to make sure that they're not just making a decision to buy, to get into the market. It's got to be still the right decision. I just wish I bought more. So many more. I look at all these deals, like in your computer, you have all these old files, and you're like, oh my God, I passed up a deal for 410,000 because the other one I bought was 380. I was crazy. The house is worth 1.2 now.
It's a very common regret, and I want our new listeners to understand that, or as in like novice investors who haven't get started or just starting, is pretty much every investor regrets not having bought more earlier. Yeah, it's more. And then preferably earlier.
Because they would have been like cheaper. Yeah, exactly.
Because, oh man. And this is the scary part that I don't know if enough people are looking at it, is like you were able to purchase a home yourself, single income at the time when you bought the home for $381?
Yeah, so I actually bought my first home at 24. I did it on my own.
Nobody's doing that today.
No, not a lot of people. I sold my car to the down payment, and I cashed out RSPs for the down payment. So I did the first time home buyers plan with RSPs. I was short. The bank would only mortgage me, like I bought it for 107, and I don't remember what my down payment was, but I was short like $1,000 for the mortgage. The bank was going to give me, let's say, 95, but I didn't. I was short $1,000. So my mom and dad said, Cindy, if that's the reason that's holding up this purchase of this house, we will gift you $1,000. Buy the house. It's a great deal. So that was my first investment. I had to fire retrofit it because there was an apartment upstairs, and then I rented to students on the main and basement floors. Fire retrofitted it. I did renovations. I cleaned up my unit and did renovations. I learned a lot from that first property. It was quite the experience. I did some of my own waterproofing. I mean, in the beginning, I really put all my hands and elbows and knees into it. I was down on the floor and up in the roof and down in the basement, and we were doing the work. And my grandfather, I remember, was helping me, and he was almost 90 at the time, and you had to do what you had to do. Yeah. My friends were all out partying, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll see you guys out at 11 o'clock tonight. I still have to finish digging the yard. Yeah.
I love the attitude. And I think a lot more young people need to have these attitudes. Like they think, I have a family member who's put an offer on a house for like 1.7. He said the house was worth $2 million in Toronto, like Eglinton area, I think.
Nice.
And why do you have to buy such a nice house?
Right? Yeah, like what happened to buying old and ugly and fixing it and making it look pretty? Yeah.
Oh, it was gorgeous, turnkey. Like why? And then you were sharing part of your home. You were renting out part of your home,
right,
to make ends meet. And people look at me like I have two heads when I suggest that.
Yeah, no, you have to do it. I mean, that's how I started, right? And I did it. I had a condo when I first moved to Toronto because that's all I could afford. And then the next purchase was that house I was just talking about with the $900 renter. And the reason I put the renter in there is because the kitchen was kind of roughed in, but it wasn't there. And the house was listed at 330, but I was in a bidding war and I wanted it so bad because I was missing out on so many deals. So back then it was hot market.
Right.
And I ended up paying $381,500 or something. Right. And it was listed at 330, but it was also pretty turnkey. It was all renovated, but I knew that if I wanted to, I guess, be comfortable, because I was a single income earner making, not six figures at the time, I was going to need rent in the basement, or not need it. I wanted it. I wanted to feel more comfortable. So my godfather and my father came into Toronto because I'm from Sudbury, and they ended up helping me put in an IKEA kitchen because it was all roughed. I actually plumbed the washer and dryer with my dad. That was for the laundry. And next thing you know, I had a great tenant. So I could have used the basement for myself, but I didn't need it. I'm one person, right? Why not? So all that space.
Just for people who want to paint a picture, who rather actually look, where can people see pictures of like your properties, see how you renovate?
Well, I have oroproperties.ca is my website, and that shows properties that are available for rent today. And I'm actually working on a section of the website where it's going to show more like before and afters and projects that we've completed. Right. I've never really done that before. Yeah. But I do. I should, right? I know all the properties I've renovated, and I know. I see your face.
People love real estate porn. I know. Use the language, but it's...
I think I have a couple of YouTube videos of some before and afters that I've sent around to people as links. But we should all do more of that. You're always just doing them instead of promoting them.
Mm-hmm. And even just like keep it simple. You just do Instagram. That's super simple.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, I just clicked through your website.
No problem.
Oh, I love taking
it down and making it pretty.
So I have to ask about the business name. Like, is this Oro, Ontario? That's Oro Properties?
No. So, Oro is gold in Italian.
Oh, okay. Got it.
I only, create and create properties that are gold standard, rent to gold standard tenants. It's kind of my shtick. But the reason I chose the name Oro is because my Nonna, who's my grandmother, I'm Italian on my mom's side. When she passed, she left a little nest egg for her daughters, unbeknownst to anybody. She was saving a little extra on the side. And she was always such a hardworking woman. She was amazing. Like, she was, I think, what I would revere, like what I would want to be as a person in my life. She was just so wonderful. I never want to forget her because she was so important to our family and to me. And what she did for our family just goes beyond money, obviously. So when I was picking out a name for my company, I was like, how do I incorporate the memory of her to remind myself every day that this is about family, that it's about helping people with their future. It's about generations. It's not just about flipping a property and making a quick buck. So when I was a little girl, my Nonna used to call me El Oro de la Nonna, which means Nonna's gold. So I'm like, Oro, everybody can say it. They don't have to have the Oro. And so born was Oro Properties. Yeah.
That's the first time I've heard this.
Yeah.
Because I knew you were from up north, and every time I drove past Oro, oh yeah, Cindy's from here.
From the area? Yeah, no, not at all. No, it's a little further north. It's another 3.5 hours.
Yeah, it's nowhere close.
No.
Oro to me is north.
Yeah, I know.
So let's go back to the beginning. Like, why the decision to invest in real estate?
Good question. I had the privilege of having a wonderful father, and still do, who always taught me about paying myself first. I was the wealthy barber daughter. He made me read the book. He made me, I worked, literally had a first job at 11. And before that, I was knocking doors for my brother for his little, businesses that he had. He was 5 years older than me. And I always was told to work for what you want. So if you want those, Levi's or Polo, whatever it was back when I was a kid, you're gonna have to work for it. Mom and dad provide you necessities and all the luxuries of life you work for, and make your own money. And I knew from a very young age that if I was going to get anywhere in my life, I had to do it myself. My parents would always be there to back me up, but a portion of every check went away. I never looked at it. So if I got $500 check, I kept 100 or 150 and the rest went away.
Right.
And I would go into Canada Savings Bonds. They would go into RRSPs. And when I finally had a house, every spare dollar that I made, I just put it on my mortgage. So I knew, and my family, like my mom, my dad, my grandparents, they all had a rental at some point in my childhood. Like I never even noticed it. I have to be honest. It was just a part of my life. My grandparents and my dad's parents had a little bachelor apartment in the upstairs of their home. My Nona and Nono on my mom's side had for a while an apartment in their attic, and then they had a coach house in the backyard. My mom and dad, when we had our first house, they had an apartment upstairs, and then they also would rent to my aunt in the basement apartment. So this was always around me, and I think it just became a part of who I am. It's like in your DNA at that point. So when I wanted to move out of the house, it wasn't like picking up a renter's guide and seeing what's for rent. I literally picked up the magazine on what houses are for sale. And I knew that I would live in a part of the house, the smaller part, and I knew that I would rent out the balance.
Right.
And it was not even a question. And my parents never questioned it. Nobody said, "Oh, what are you doing? Are you crazy? You're too young." Like it was just like, "Oh, great, let's go look at houses," you know. So it was just in me, and that's why you said earlier. I don't think we were recording then. You take your kids with you, your daughter and your son, to lease signings and to meet tenants, and probably pick up rent checks or whatever. I think that's phenomenal because they are being molded and they're learning without even it's through osmosis. So you're creating little real estate monsters, which is phenomenal because it's teaching them about equity and sweat equity and hard work. And, you got to do what you got to do to get to where you want to get to. And if it's part of something that they are, you're very passionate about what you do, they're going to feed off that passion and they're going to want to do it too. So, and there is no other avenue in this world other than the lottery, which not all of us can win, where you can become a millionaire or make money or have wealth for the future for your family. Real estate has afforded me the luxury to really, I say I don't work. I work so hard, my own business and everything, but I don't have to go to work. I don't have to work for anyone else. I don't need to rely on a paycheck. I live off the cash flow of my properties. And that is that's the dream that I had when I started, and I'm doing it. So that keeps me inspired to help other people to do it too. And it all started from a very young age going, if I put money into RSPs, my dad said one day I can use that money to buy a house. And that's what I did. So
do you remember what you were making when you were 24?
What I was making financially?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually had 5 jobs. Yeah, I had 5 jobs all through university. I did an undergrad. I had a 4-year undergrad, and then I took a year off, and then I went back and I did my master's for 2 years. So when I bought the house, it's so funny story. I was supposed to go away to do my master's, and I wanted to go to law school actually, and I was waiting for the whole LSATs and results and all that to come in, and at the same time, I wrote my GMAT. I thought, well, if I can't get into law school, at least I can do my master's in business. And anyways, the GMAT score came in way higher than the LSAT score. And I said, I guess I'm going to do my master's. And I was applying all over the place. But at the same time, because I'm not a very patient person, and anybody who knows me will tell you that, I had also was putting in offers on homes because I'm like, well, I can always have someone manage it when I'm not here. My family's here. So I ended up getting the house and basically moving in. And then I got accepted into the master's program, or I was getting accepted into the master's programs. And I just decided to stay at Laurentian in Sudbury because I thought, man, I don't know how I'm going to do it. How am I going to, now that the reality is here, I actually have this house, and now I have to go into school. I'm going to have to work. How am I going to do it all, right? At least here, it's easy. I got 5 jobs already, and every semester I dropped a job, of course, because the master's is not like an undergrad. That stuff's hard. But anyways, so I just, I don't even know where I was going with that.
I was asking you about how much you were making at the age of 24.
Right. So when I bought the house, I wasn't really making, and it was funny. I don't believe they gave me a mortgage. I don't know how they gave me a mortgage because I didn't have a full-time job. I had 5 part-time jobs. No one co-signed for me. The banks must have been very generous back then. The interest rate, I think, was 9.8 or 8.9. It was 9 or 10%, which was good back then. But no, I was, I don't even know what I was making annually. Maybe, I don't know, 25,000,
Okay.
30,000 if I was lucky. Like I had part-time jobs. I was going to school.
What about how about your first job after school? How much do you think you were making after you had your
Uh,
master's?
Yeah, that one I know. So I started working for McCain Foods Canada
Yeah.
as a Northern Ontario sales rep. So I was traveling all around Northern Ontario, and I believe my starting salary was 38 or 40,000. It was like, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it was like nothing. This was a long time ago.
Okay.
I got a company car, got a phone,
Oh,
a
nice.
pager back then. I negotiated the phone and I negotiated a laptop in. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm an MBA and I'm like up in Northern Ontario. You got to give me a cell phone and a laptop at least. So, yeah, things changed after that company went and started giving them to everybody. But yeah, it was sort of the catalyst to that.
What do you think this person? So, if someone started this job today, what do you think they're making?
Probably 55 to 65. Yeah, as a
Okay.
starting salary.
I don't know if you can guess the point I'm trying to make, but your income. So, what you achieved, right, with an income of 38 to 40,000, you were able to afford your house 381,000, right?
No, that one was actually, it's embarrassing. That one was like 107.
107.
I was in Sudbury though.
Let's use the second house because there's a lot more people. I think
Okay.
we have more listeners from Toronto area than
Right.
Sudbury
And I
area.
was making, I think, I think I was making 45-ish when I bought that property.
Okay.
So
Okay.
not much more.
Okay. And what would someone be making at that same job today?
So probably, because they would have been more experienced instead of in the 55 to 60, they'd be at the higher end, like 60, 65, probably 65, 70. There's bonuses and car and stuff like that.
Okay, let's use
So it
seven.
depends on how many years of a company, how many years would I have been with them. So maybe 70,000.
So the point I'm trying to make is your house went up almost 4 times,
Yeah.
right? Versus
Yeah.
the income for someone working your job when you had it then versus someone working today is up
Right.
50%.
Mm-hmm.
4 times versus 50%. And now here's the tough question, because I know we
Yeah.
have a lot of young listeners.
Yeah.
Oh, gee, that sounds like a jerk. I know we have many listeners in the age of like 20 to 30.
Uh,
So 24-year-old you, what was the
mhm.
advice you give them
Do it.
today, if you were today?
Buy. Buy, 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 buy. Don't rent. Buy. Buy a house. Borrow from your parents if you have to.
Right.
Get an early inheritance from your grandparents, or take out don't go and buy a $40,000, $50,000 vehicle. Like sacrifice a little to own something and put in the work that it takes. See, Aaron, like the problem with, I think, the younger generation, sorry guys, because I know you're listening, but I think that they, the work ethic is so different, right? Like I know because I'm hiring them for work. And when I was working in that age, I literally was so driven to prove myself with my company.
Mm-hmm.
I would have done anything to show them my worth, to show them that I could do the job and excel at it and do better than they expected.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays I feel like people just punch the time card to come to work, punch it to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I only get this much vacation. Can I get more? Like they appreciate life more than we did, I think, is the point I'm trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
I sacrificed all holidays, all weekends because, I had 5 jobs before I started my full-time job. And it was because I was determined. I was motivated, self-motivated. No one made me do any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there's so much of this young desire to, well, it'll just come and I'm going to go travel to Europe or Australia or, Turkey or Pakistan for a month. It's in their blood to not stay stationary.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I was always interested in rooting. So I always wanted that root. I wanted that brick and mortar. I wanted that house. I wanted to build something. I never had a fleeting desire to leave the country for many weeks or months at a time. I love to travel, but I would do it for 1 week to 10 days. Like that was it. The longest vacation I ever took was 2 weeks, and it was touring South Africa with a friend. And it was the year before I left my job. Because at that point, I think I started to become more like the 20-somethings that are there now. And I'm like, you know what? I need more personal time. I need to invest in myself, because all I've been doing all those years was tattooing the company on my behind and doing everything for them and not enough maybe for myself. Sure, I was building my portfolio outside of my work. So I was working full time and still renovating houses and buying and selling and all that stuff. But I didn't have a lot of free time. So it's a sacrifice. So
it is
guys, sacrifice, but do it now, because if you don't, you may regret it. You might, it's harder and harder to get in.
Oh,
the longer you wait, the harder it is to get in.
And then now it's tempting.
And seek advice, right? So when I bought, at least I had my family. They were there to guide me and to tell me if I was making a good decision or a bad decision. And I if you don't come from a long line of investors or landlords, then seek advice from an investor / landlord who can guide you in the right direction. Someone who's actively doing it, has actively been doing it, not someone who did it 15 or 20 years ago, because their advice now might be a little stale. You want someone who's doing it today.
So I have a lot of questions to ask. We don't have a whole lot of time. How are you doing for time?
I'm all yours.
Oh, sweet. We're gonna be here till 9. All right. I have a lot of questions. Okay. So you say bye in Toronto, in Pickering, in near your Laurentian University. Oh my God, it's far.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the map.
You just pulled up the map. So no, when I decided where I was going to buy, I educated myself. So I became an expert, just like you. We went to REIN, we read books, we went to different groups, different meetups. We met people who were doing it, and got advice and inspiration from them. We learned how to analyze. We learned how to accurately, forecast what was a good and a bad decision. We did our own due diligence. I'm sure you did. I'm saying we. But, you didn't just take it for a headline that you read that the hottest new area is X and you should buy there because market values are low right now and you're going to make a mint. I saw a lot of people kind of make decisions that maybe weren't the best decisions because they were buying off of hype, right? They were reading headlines about even like new LRTs going in, and they're probably okay if they held on to the house now. But at the price they bought it at the time, I was like, oh my God, number one, it's not going to cash flow for 4 to 5 years. Number two, if they sell it, they're actually going to lose money. Like they're never going to recover after land transfer taxes and agent fees and all that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is do your due diligence on the area of interest that works for you, because you can find a property no matter where you are. I consult for people, and one of the biggest questions I get, or one of the biggest things I hear, is I can't find anything that works. There's nothing for sale that works. So I go, okay, well, I'll take you shopping, and I guarantee you that by the end of the day, you'll be putting offers on at least 3 properties. We put offers on the top 3. So if I can take you out to see 9 to 15 properties, depending on the inventory at the time and the area, why can I find it but you can't? It's because we're not looking, right? We're not looking appropriate. We're not looking at what could be versus what is.
Right.
So
not maximizing the opportunity.
Not maximizing the opportunity. So looking for something that can be more. And it doesn't always have to be, I got a deal. I got it under market value. I don't think I bought more than maybe one house under market value in all my portfolio. So, some of them were in bidding wars. Some of them were at market value. Some of them were a little above market value. Some of them I negotiated $1,000 off. Some I didn't negotiate anything off. I mean, it's not always about getting the deal. It's about do the numbers work and doing your own due diligence. So when I was working full time, I was working by the airport. I was living in Leslieville. I was analyzing Hamilton at the time, which I actually do love Hamilton for the style of their buildings, and the prices were fantastic. I analyzed Durham. I analyzed, all kinds of areas in Toronto. And at the end of the day, I was like, what am I doing? Do I really want to drive to work by the airport? And then after work, drive to Hamilton or Durham, which is even almost further at that time of the day. And then have to drive back home and then do it all over again. And it just became clear to me that logistically for my life and how I wanted some semblance of life. I didn't want to be in the car all day and all night, that it was just easier for me to look close to home. So my own backyard was just as good as all those other areas. You know, and I even looked in Mimico, New Toronto, and I kind of regret not buying some of those ones. But the rents were so low, and quite frankly, they're still, in my opinion, too low for the area and for what they're you know, what that area is giving people as far as the lifestyle. But yeah, so that's why I chose my area, and I still would buy downtown if you know, if there was an opportunity. Like I would never say don't buy in Toronto because it's inflated, because I don't think it's overinflated if you're buying right. You got to know what to look for, obviously.
So what are you looking for?
Me personally, right now, as far as buying the next investment, I'm holding on to all my money and all my properties. I'm not selling anything and I'm not buying anything. And the reason for that at this particular moment is it's been a very crazy year and a half for me. We got married and started building our dream home, actually. So it's been a long battle legally for the house because we've had a crazy neighbor that caused us a lot of problems. We had to go to the Ontario Municipal Board. So I learned all kinds of new things about cities and permits and community adjustments and Ontario Municipal Boards. But we
and it was just one neighbor, really. That was
one neighbor. We had like 65 signatures of support, and one that didn't even live there. They just owned the house next door and they rented it out. They lived in Etobicoke and were in a different community. Yeah, it's crazy. So it's been an ongoing battle, and that makes you take a step back and say, you know what, I'm just going to like hold on to my funds because I'm not sure if I might need them. Like, you know, when like it's just easier when you're building a house to know that you don't have to rely solely on construction financing. So we've just been kind of waiting, but looking at all the things going on around us, saying like, I want to buy, and, you know, but you don't. We're just holding off. It's like that beautiful pair of shoes on the shelf that you really want, but you're waiting for it to go on sale, but you know it'll never go on sale. You're just going to buy it later.
Yeah, like Lululemon.
Never
goes on sale. So say a client comes up to you, they have X dollars and they want to buy today. What do you tell them?
Well, first, I want to know is it pure investment? Are they going to be living in it? Is there an area, a preference that they have? But if they just said, this is what I have, I don't care where it is. There are some pockets that I kind of have had my eye on that no one's bought in yet. And they're kind of, I don't even know if I want to tell you because then everybody's going to go buy there. No, but there's a lot of areas where everybody's buying, right? So like Junction and Annex and all that. But if you just keep going north, and even north of 401, east of 427, west of 400, south of 407, there are some little neighborhood communities in there with some really nice sized lots and bungalows that are good value. They just don't have that sheesh of, oh, I'm in Leslieville, or oh, I'm in Mimico or New Toronto where all this new stuff's going on, or I'm in the Junction, or but for an investment perspective and for future value and capital appreciation, there's some interesting opportunities there. Of course, anything along any future development of LRT lines that are currently going on or about to begin. There's so much happening with transportation in the city of Toronto, forecasted to happen and already happening, that the opportunities are kind of endless. But I would also encourage people, if they have the funds, to look at multifamily. I mean, look at Pierre Paul and, you guys up in Hamilton. There's been some incredible opportunities that you've seized with big buildings, Mark Loeffler and other people that I know. And, if you can get your hands on even one or two of them, you're done. You don't have to worry about it anymore, instead of buying like 20 individuals, right? So yeah, depending on finances and all that stuff, there's still some good pockets. I mean, I like Mississauga. I never would have touted Mississauga before. Not all of Mississauga, but there's certainly the pocket that we've started investing in. There's a multi-billion-dollar project where they are creating an entire lakefront community. It's called Inspiration Lakeview, and it's driven values up in this neighborhood exponentially. We got in kind of just on the cusp of it becoming inappropriate in value. The house that we have as a rental, we bought for $640,000. It was a private sale. And that house today is worth about 1.2. And that was only 4 years ago. Another one we bought for 925, again, a private sale. I don't buy a lot of private sales, but it seems like here there's quite a few. We just didn't have an agent on our side. And that one today, the land value is worth around 125. And that was about 3 years ago. So, then we've seen what's happening in and around the area. I bought my office building in this area. I bought it for 525, I think it was. And today it's probably worth 850. And there's potential for development, amalgamating with other properties beside me. So you never know what will happen there for a future condo developer or something. But this area in and around, they're more expensive than they were 3-4 years ago. But I would certainly advise people that if it's of interest to them to make some good capital appreciation and even live here for a while in it, some good, interesting value.
Too many questions. Okay, so can you make these properties that you're in pockets that you're saying are good? Can you make them cash flow?
Depends on what you buy it for.
Oh yeah. You buy anything for $1, you can make it cash flow.
Yeah. So the first area I was talking about, definitely. I mean, there's still areas of Toronto you could definitely make cash flow because the rents are awesome, right? Our rents in Toronto have gone up so much that for sure there's still cash flowing properties, especially, you can't buy a single family home and expect it to cash flow. You need to have a minimum of 2 to 3 units. It's just, I've always done that anyways. So for me, it's a no-brainer. But I think a lot of people look at single family dwellings and they think, well, it doesn't work. No, it doesn't. It can't work. It's, unless it's a super amazing, renovated, gorgeous, whatever property, you're not going to get that kind of rent to support all those payments. So, I mean, you have to convert it if it's not already converted. And I think a lot of people are looking for the turnkey triplex, the turnkey duplex. Like they don't really exist. And if they do, you're paying really top dollar for it. So again, it goes back to sweat equity and looking for the potential in a property and for what it can be, not for what it is today. Not a lot of people have that vision. And I find that's why, my consulting business has been good, is because they need like a house whisperer to come in and say, this house is begging for you to put a wall here, a door there, convert that kitchen like this, and make that bathroom this, and now your rents are going to be ABC. And they're like, what? I didn't see that. I'm like, those are my favorite words. I never saw that.
You can watch as much HGTV as you want. When it comes to for real time, it is totally different.
So nervous. Yeah, it doesn't happen in one episode.
Contractors don't always behave like they do on TV.
Oh my God, no.
And I know Marston's been on TV.
Yeah. He behaves okay.
I know, but like lots of investors have contractor stories.
Yeah, and because a lot of us, when we started, we were trying to save money. So, literally, I remember my first renovation budget was $15,000. Well, what are you going to do for $15,000 today? So you would hire people that, weren't licensed, didn't have WSIB or liability insurance. They were, I don't want to say fly-by-nighters, but they were, they didn't have a website. They didn't have a company vision. They didn't have credit. You gotta give me money. Yeah, how many times I got a message where if you don't send me another $1,000 today, I can't come back to your project because I have to go buy material. And I'm like, what am I, a credit card? Like, I hired you. I gave you the deposit you wanted. Now I have to pay you so you can pay your guys or you can pay for materials. Like, that's not how we structured our payment schedule. Like, you're not there yet, So we all have those experiences, especially in the beginning, because we're really trying to save money. And I've learned over the years that you kind of have to pay the piper to avoid the headaches. So you end up spending more in your renovations, and renovations today are more than I actually am shocked at what people are charging. I remember a client once told me that a contractor said to him, it was about redoing the basement, making an apartment. He goes, well, the way house prices are going up today, why would I charge you any less than X? I was like, what? He said that? It was like he was honest that he's gouging you just because he knows your property is going to go up so much in value. Like, it's, maybe you don't want to deal with that guy, but there's a happy medium somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
I had a quote. I forget the app, Zippy quote. I don't know. I think that's what it's called. And we had a contractor come in and quote, just 3 bedrooms, carpets removed, hardwood installed. And then we get a number. I'm like, okay, I can't make sense of this number. Can you break it down for me a little bit? And then one of the numbers that just caught my eye was like over $2,000 just to remove carpet.
To remove carpet. Wow. So tell him, I'll remove the carpet. So that's actually $2,000 off. Now what?
But everything else is still way too expensive. So I was like, so we didn't say, we said no to him.
And yeah, and I think a lot of contractors are quite busy because people are renovating their homes instead of moving now. So you get contractors that are pricing jobs at a price where if they get it, they'll fit it in. But otherwise, they don't want it really. So we call it the I don't want you price and, the I'm too busy price. But if you want to give it to me, sure. I'll come do it for you.
I'll find the time for you.
Yeah, find the time, yeah.
So I shared an article that was written on you back in 2010, I think. And it was about flipping. So I'd be amiss if I didn't ask you about flipping.
Sure.
What are your thoughts about flipping? Because I remember I read the article a long time ago when it was first written about like long flip, short flip, flipping to yourself, flipping the bird.
To the contractors. Yeah, so I've always been a hoarder. I think that article calls me that. I don't flip the actual property, but what I do is I flip it back to myself through refinance, essentially. So you buy something, you renovate it, you then get it rented out. Rents are high. Property value's now gone up exponentially because you put in the renovations and sweat equity. And then you go to the bank and you refinance. And what I was always able to do was pull out at least the value of my renovation and put it back in my pocket. Mm-hmm. So, you buy the house with a typical mortgage or even a line of credit. Sometimes we do a line of credit mortgage, or sometimes you just buy it with your own line of credit, whatever works. And then you would have another line of credit that you would use for renovations. You would renovate it. Then when you refinanced it, you'd pay the credit line back. And that just became your revolving resource for doing renovations. But every time you did it, you've upped the value of your home more than what you pulled out, right? Because you only get to pull out 80%. 20% of that value stays back in the house. And the banks, as we know, never give you the full value of what the house is worth. So if you bought it for, 500 and you put 100 in, they're giving you 650, but really it's worth 725 or more. Mm-hmm. So that's been how I've been able to continue to build my portfolio, because money doesn't grow on trees. So where do you get the money to buy the next one? And it's quite frankly just through flipping the money out. So flipping your money out. So reno, rent, repeat, reno, rent, repeat, and refinance, repeat, reno, rent, refinance, repeat. So just going through those 3 R's or 4 R's to get your money back out. And it's great for an investor too. So if you're doing projects with people and let's say, you're buying the property and they're just investing money into renovation for a straight percentage return on their money, they get their money back out in 6 to 12 months. They're very happy. And so are you, because you only had to pay them a percentage versus taking them as a 50% partner or something like that. So as far as flipping, I have a slide that I show my clients on flipping. I'm like, okay, you can flip. And if you want to buy for flipping, I can help you do that. I can help you make a decision on that. But there are a couple things to remember in a flip. Number one is you only buy a property to flip if you're willing to hold it, because you do not know what's going to happen in the market in the next 6 to 8 months or 12 months. You don't know what's going to happen with banks and how they may or may not wish to finance or your money. You don't know what's going to happen with the market. Will it go up? Will it go down? If interest rates are skyrocketing, will people want to buy that house? So that's really important. I've told every flipper, if you want to flip, make sure that it will cash flow if you have to hold it. So do your renovation, do everything. If you can't sell it, be sure that it will cover all your costs and then some if you're going to hold it. And I guess the other thing is know what renovations to do or not do. I mean, you really need a designer to come in, because there are just how many homes that we walked into, we're like, I cannot believe what I'm seeing, and it's renovated. Like, I have pictures of stuff. And they wonder why it doesn't sell. And you're like, what did you do? Like, you massacred this poor house, like
spent all this money for nothing.
in the kitchen, or like just the colors or the styles or so know how to renovate.
Right.
And then I guess the last thing is that if you're going to flip, you'll probably make some money somewhere between. I do the analysis for them. So if you bought the house for this, you put in that, you pay your realtors, your land transfer taxes, your holding fee, costs because you held it for 6 months or a year, and this is what you're going to net out. Maybe 30,000 if you're lucky, maybe 50,000. Hey, you might even make 100,000 if you're really lucky, depending on the quality and the size and the scale of the renovation. But hold it for 5 years. What are you going to make then? Certainly, you're going to make more than 100,000, because not only have you now have a property that's had the opportunity to go up in value for 5 years in a good area because you bought right, but you also made money every year on the cash flow of the tenants. You pay down the mortgage every year because you've been getting rents. So instead of making 100,000, you've now made probably 300,000 or 350,000. So it's like, whoa, what would you rather? Like, that's the lottery ticket.
Right.
This is an income. Right.
And capital gains.
Taxable as an income if you're flipping, whereas over here it's capital gains. And I just see so much more value in the hold. It gives you so much more opportunity. It's like they don't even compare to me, but certainly there are some great flippers who've done amazing jobs and they make it their career, right? Like that's their career. I don't want to be flipping houses out every few months. Like I kind of like just having them. Yeah.
A lot of the flippers I know, that once they have enough money, they just buy a house and hold it, though.
But they have enough money to flip it. So maybe if they held one for 2 or 3 years, they'd have enough money to go buy another one, right? That's how we're doing it. Because the value of the property goes up, your mortgage comes up in 2 or 3 or 4 years, whatever term you took. You're like, okay, now I'm going to refinance this property because now it's gone up even more. I'm going to pull out another 100, 200,000. Now I have a down payment to go do it again. And I still have my credit line that I've been using for renos, or my investor partner who gives me the money to do renovations, and then I pay him back. So, it is about flipping your money out. And I know when I started investing in Toronto, a lot of people were doing no money down or very little money down. One thing that I'm very conservative. So again, wealthy barber daughter, right? I'm very, very conservative. And I always made sure that my mortgages, like I basically always did conventional 20% down, so that I felt secure. If anything happened in the market and the market dipped 15%, they're not calling in my mortgage, right? I'm good. But the no money down and even the 5% down, I was always like, that's cool because I don't have to put as much money down, but my cash flow is not as good, and I'd rather have the cash flow, I guess. So there are many ways to make the math work and many ways for the accounting of it. It's just the way that I liked to do it and still like to do it.
And here's just a simple generalization. If you look at the Toronto Real Estate Board from prices from the peak of the market of 1989, so 88 or 89, that was the peak before the crash. If you took that number compared it to Toronto Real Estate Board for like 2016 on average, so I'm taking a number from a peak number to 2016, and prices I don't believe have gone below 2016. So on average, Toronto real estate prices have gone up 7% a year.
So it used to be 6.5%, and now it's an average of 7%. So that's great.
Yeah, and then, but you're talking about these flips that you're talking about $1 million. So 7% is 70 grand. Right? Yep. And you're talking about potential of 30 to 50,000. If you're lucky, 100,000 return. Just hold the property 2 years. You got a shot at making 140.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's capital gains.
Capital gains. Less taxes.
Yeah. Unless someone wants to pay more taxes, go ahead. We need more schools and more roads.
Yeah.
So you said earlier that you're holding everything. So isn't there going to be a crash or something? Or wasn't there already a crash? And it's going to be a worse crash? What goes up must come down.
Okay, great question. Because when the market crashed like several years ago, right? Everybody was like, "Oh, Toronto's abysmal. The States, everything's happening. Subprime mortgages, like it's abysmal. Like everybody's losing money, and you're all like your portfolio is going to go down the tube." Cindy, are you regretting all your purchases? And I looked at them and I was like, well, no.
You're regretting your purchases?
My purchases are actually going up in value still while all the market's crashing because I bought appropriately, right? I wasn't buying $3 million properties in Rosedale and Forest Hill. I was buying in, gentrifying neighborhoods where people were willing, the market's still going up. I remember my portfolio was going up, I think 12% a year at a time where others were declining by 20% a year.
Right.
So that's why there's an average,
Yeah.
right? There's good and bad. So that's why it's so important to buy appropriately. Everybody has their niche market,
12%.
but yeah, 12%. So, and that was in the bad year. So I don't regret my purchases. I like holding them because, even if the market crashed today, I don't know, 30%, all heck broke loose.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I haven't lost anything.
Mm-hmm.
All of my properties are worth more than 30% today than when I bought them.
Right.
I guess what would be scary is if you bought it today, like what happened a couple years ago, right? They bought in the peak in April for, I don't know, call it $1 million on purchase. And then a month later, it was only worth $900 or $875. Those people were probably losing their minds. They weren't able to close on it for mortgages. They had to scoop the money and put it on the house in order to close, or they were walking away from $50,000 deposits. That was a time of turmoil, I would say. I just, I felt sorry for what was happening in the market, but there's also, buyer beware, and the real estate agents that were selling those homes, they should have maybe known that that wasn't the right purchase. It didn't happen for every purchase. It was only certain homes that got really out of whack in certain neighborhoods.
Yeah, Stouffville.
I don't know much about Stouffville because I invested up there, but yeah, with a lot of that going on.
That was just the big headline because there's a massive lawsuit. I think they bought at the peak. They walked away from our contract. And
then you are liable, right? You're liable for not only losing your deposit, but now the old owner can sue you because he can't sell it for the same price.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So now he's suing you for that delta. It's kind of scary.
The number in my head was like 600,000 was what the judge awarded in damages. That's a lot of money.
Oh, are you kidding me?
No, these things happen.
That gives me a headache.
Yeah, but again, you're talking about, you're buying in one of the top 2 cities of Canada. We're not talking about Stouffville. Stouffville's lovely. Sorry, anyone who's offended by that. No. Stouffville is lovely.
It's a great area because, it's so close to Toronto and people commute in and all that stuff.
But what's the market for $3 million in Stouffville?
I don't know. It's a risk.
What's the market for $3 million in Toronto? You don't have to answer that. I have better questions to ask you. So what's your lifestyle like now? Are you still busting your hump? You mentioned, it might have been off before we were recording, but you took a long motorcycle trip. Is that going to be a regular thing for you to take an extended period of time?
So this year was shorter than the other years, only because I was transitioning staff at Oro Properties and stuff, and I couldn't be away too much. And with the house build and everything, we didn't want to be away for too long a period of time because when we do these trips, we're not always in service. So this year, in order to make it even more fun, because we were doing it shorter, I said, okay, let's do camping. I want to camp on the back of a motorcycle for 2 weeks in the mountains. So we did Alberta and British Columbia. Yeah, I'm a glutton for punishment, right? And we called it a vacation, and it was. We had a magnificent time. The only problem was there was a fire ban, and of course, we thought we were going to eat over a fire every night, and that kind of threw a dent in those plans. So lots of cheese and crackers and cured meats.
Not even a camp stove was allowed?
No. Well, we were camping with a motorcycle, or no camp stove. No, I had a little thing that could heat tea that I could fit in my pocket. That was it. There was.
Can't afford to go to a restaurant?
We did some of that. But, when you're pulling into town and you're in the middle of the mountains and there is no restaurant, like Lake Louise, Banff, and all these, remote communities in and around there, there's no cities, there's no towns. If you don't grab something 2 hours before you get to where you're going, you're not eating. Yeah. So it's fun. We like to get away. Usually I do 3 weeks, but it was a 2-week trip, and it's phenomenal. You're just you and the sky and the clouds, and we literally were in a tent. We were outside for 15 days straight. Even when we went to restaurants, we sat on patios if we did that. So it was very, it was inspiring to be kind of just grounded back to nature and the simple things in life. Like we had to have a water filter with us because some places that we didn't even have running water. Like we used the streams and the lakes because we were in some pretty remote areas where we're just pitching a tent kind of beside a river.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like phenomenal though. You're like, okay, how are we going to get dinner cooked tonight? Or how are we going to get water? Or, it's like a big embankment. We got to walk down, like little things that you don't think about like every day that became your focus. And it helps to bring your mind kind of in a different place because it's just go, 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 go every day. And you've got 1,000 emails and, 1,000 issues. And you're just constantly struggling to get through all those kind of problems. But the problems that you deal with on a vacation like that are somehow settling, it's grounding and awesome. So I want to do that again. But yeah, and we'd like to travel.
So you slept on the ground. I'm soft. Well, I can't handle that.
These Neo Air mattresses are awesome. I can send you the web link for them, and you blow them up, and they're like only this thick, but they were like a bed and the best sleeping bag ever. Because we were in weather from 5 degrees to 43 degrees. 5 degrees, raining, to 43 degrees, and like trains going by and starting forest fires because it was so hot and dry. That was the variation. Like, how do you even pack for that in a bag, this big, because I'm on a motorcycle? Mm-hmm.
It's called a hotel. I think you can afford it.
One night we were kind of feeling nostalgic, and we didn't know where we were going to sleep that night because a lot of the parks are booked, right? And I was like kind of tired. I really needed a massage at that point. We were going through Revelstoke, and I said, and Marston's headset wasn't communicating, like the battery wasn't charging, so mine was working. So I was making phone calls to kind of campsites and stuff, and I finally said, you know what? Forget it. I'm calling the hotel, this little chalet that we stayed at in Revelstoke a couple of years ago. We go there, been there a couple times, and I'm going to see if she'll take me for the night, like just one night, because their minimum's like 2 or 3 nights. And so I begged her, and she's like, okay, I'll do it, but don't tell anyone. So we got off the bike, and I'm like, hey, honey, how do you feel about Revelstoke? Same chalet we were at 2 years ago, and I've already booked us in for massages in an hour and a half. He's like, oh my God, yes. We're going to have luxury for one night. So we had like an amazing, one night of luxury and then back to camping again. So
too funny.
Yeah.
So my listeners will probably get tired of me repeating this stat, but because you're a Toronto investor, I think this is helpful for you. So the Ontario population net growth in 2017 was just under 190,000. So that's immigration, emigration, birth, death, everything, right? Mm-hmm. And then Toronto Star came up with an article saying 700,000 millennials want to leave home and enter the housing market over 10 years. So simple math, we need 260,000 people in Ontario are going to be looking for housing. Average Toronto household is 2.7. So that gives you almost 100,000 households that we need to create. Right? And so that's the demand. Oh yeah, because you wonder why vacancy rates are the way they are and why you can charge the rents and shit. So that's the demand side. And then Better Dwelling came out with an article saying 57,000 units to hit Greater Toronto in 2018. So demand is 96,000, supply is 57,000, and based on past ratios of like condos, houses, good guess is about 26,000 of the 57,000 units are going to be one bedroom condo or smaller.
Right. That's why.
Right.
Bricks and mortars. Those people have somewhere to go after.
Yeah. So people always say like, oh, what goes up comes down. Stock market comes up, comes down. Mm-hmm. But the demand and supply is just that.
Yeah, it is what it is. Like, and again, we were talking a little bit about transportation. All the transportation changes they're making in Toronto, they're making it easier to get around and, more livable. People want to live in the city or close to the core of a city. It's just, I'm not going to lie. We're seeing a lot of people transition and leave and go to Hamilton and, outlying communities. But there's always going to be a driving force for people to want to live in the center of the city. So if you can find if you can find properties and build your portfolio in and around that, I don't think you can lose. I really don't. And especially go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask you, how many of your tenants have cars still?
You know what? A lot. A
Yeah.
lot. Yeah. Even condos. My clients that, because I don't own any condos, but I have a lot of clients who do. And we rent the parking spots out separately. So if the tenant doesn't take them, we rent them because that's the only way to make a condo cash flow most of the times is the $200 you're
Yeah.
going to get for the parking spot. And I've found that it's quite hard to rent a condo without the parking spot, even a condo. So unless it's like right downtown, like Yonge Street or a building, that kind of thing, you're okay. But anywhere outside of that core subway line, people will not rent it unless you have a parking spot available. So, make note of that, guys. If you're buying condominiums, to at least buy one parking spot, even if you don't want it, you might spend, I don't know what they're going for now, 80, 100,000 for a parking spot. Probably they used to be 20, 30,000. And then I heard they were 50 to 80,000. Like, I don't know. It depends on where the building is, how much they're going for. But it is a good purchase because it's going to help you sell it when it comes time to sell, and you can rent it. So it goes on your mortgage, right? So it's all part of the big package. But
what rents are you seeing for parking spots?
it depends on where they are, but in a condo, I don't think we have anything under $175 a month. So $175 to $300 is pretty much average.
300?
Yeah, if you're in a prime location, because people who are coming downtown to work will rent that spot and write it off. Yeah, or their companies will pay for it.
You and I are employers. Let's not publish this in case our employees hear this.
Not paying for anybody's parking.
Yeah, just make the employer pay for it. No problem. Any of your units in your houses and apartments, the parking that belongs to them, do you rent any of them out separately? You charge separate?
I never include it. Ever.
Oh,
never,
cool.
Never have. In fact, you talk about pioneering rents in the East End back in the day. I was the only one who was charging extra for parking. And I was like, what are you guys crazy? Like, charge for your parking spot. Because I would tell the tenant that if I've got front pad parking in my building, I have to pay the city an annual fee. Well, I'm not going to give it to you for free.
You do?
But there's a license number on front pad parking spots in the southeast end of Toronto. So where they're actually legal. If there's no little license on the wall, it's not a legal spot. And in order to maintain your license annually, you have to pay the city a fee.
How much?
So it depends on the property and where it was, but a few $100s a year.
And then how much? What do you get? What do you charge for rent?
For the property. Okay, so it's not relative. It's $50 a month for a single, $75 a month for a tandem, $100 a month if it's two side by side. Obviously, there's no deal, and then garages go up from there. So carports are $150. Garages are $175 to $275.
And no pushback?
So it does make a difference. No pushback. That's okay. They can get a street permit. So I just tell them if you don't want to rent the parking spot, street permits are anywhere from $75 to $125, I think it is, every 6 months. And you're free to park on the road. We're just going to rent it out to someone off property. And we do. Like, people rent them because they need sports car storage or motorcycle or
if they work close by.
Yeah, or their landlord didn't include parking for their property, so they need one. Now, the only place where I do include one parking spot is Mississauga, because it's Mississauga.
Yeah, it's
a little different. The lots are bigger. So unless it's a condo, then of course, or apartment building, then of course we still charge for it.
Cindy, this has been a blast. Apologies for the technical difficulties for slowing us down.
No worries.
It's almost been an hour and a half.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the fun thing about
too much, or I don't know.
No, it's just you're full of Oro. How can folks follow up with you or follow along whatever it is you're doing? You don't have Instagram. That's a mistake.
I do. I don't.
You don't post.
My staff are supposed to be posting on Instagram. Guys, why are you not posting on Instagram? I do have Instagram. I think it's Oro Properties. I only recently, I think they started posting again. So yes, I know I'm delinquent on my marketing, and I am a marketer. So isn't that terrible? Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Obviously, I have a Facebook page, Oro Properties. We're very actively posting on that. I'm still old school, I guess. I don't do Snapchat, but I do a lot of Facebook. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. That's kind of it. I mean, the Oro Properties website, we'll show what properties are available at any given time, and we're working to update the site for the landlord side of it, so they can see projects and stuff like that. I will get that up eventually, I promise.
I'm looking at your Instagram.
Is it there? It's gotta be there.
There's not enough pictures of you, in my opinion, but I'm not an expert.
That's really me. But yeah, I should be. My consulting services. We really, a lot of the social media, because we're always, trying to attract tenants, is focused on the properties. So not so much on me and my services. That seems to have been since the inception of time through referral, which is phenomenal. So, not heavily marketed. It's if I'm in magazines, books, newspapers, and stuff like that, people will contact. They see my signs in yards in their neighborhoods too, so we use the rental signs. And then just my clients pass me along to their friends or colleagues or family, whoever needs services for consulting or for tenant find. So that's how I've built my business and my portfolio. But I will start thinking about advertising more for myself and my services.
Sounds like you're busy. It's not like you need more anything.
Always more, right? That's why we hire the staff, so that they can help.
Any final thoughts you want to share with anyone listening? I usually like to focus on the folks who are on the fence. Either they already have one or two and they're not moving on.
Yeah, why are they on the fence? You gotta, if I listened to everybody around me who was not doing it, I would not be here today talking to you. And you probably wouldn't be here today talking to me if you had listened to all the people around you who said, "What are you doing? Are you crazy?"
Yeah.
But, everybody that you speak to, I found over the years, where you say, "Oh, I'm an investor and a landlord," they go, "Oh yeah, I always wanted to do that," or "I always thought about buying," or "I almost bought this property." It's like everybody understands the value of it, and they all have this little bug in them where they probably would like to do it, but there's really a chosen few who are taking the leap to do it and to make it a career. So it's like real estate agents. There's a lot of real estate agents out there who make it a pastime. It's like a hobby, or they do deals for their families and friends because they kind of like it. And then there's that 5 to 10% who make it a career, and they are really good at it.
Right.
And they hustle for their clients and their customers, and it's what they do. So, if you're sitting on the fence, why are you sitting on the fence? Is it because a bunch of naysayers are telling you, "Don't do it"? Have you heard the headlines? Or is it just you don't want to? Like, if it's not your passion, and if you're not ready to be dedicated and committed and make it really a part of your life, because no matter what property manager you hire, you still need to make the decisions. Like when you're building a house, no matter if you hire a builder, you still have to be there 24 hours a day to answer the emails and sign the contracts and write the checks. So, you are 100% invested in your own future. And if you're not willing to be, then you shouldn't do it. But I believe everybody can and should, because really it is one of the biggest building blocks of your financial future. Owning a piece, if not several pieces of real estate, for sure, bar none. So get off the fence, jump.
Okay, so I lied because I have some more things to ask.
I'm ready.
Are your parents rich?
They're rich in love. My parents, so if my mom and dad were here today to talk to you about real estate, my dad would say he would have bought anything and everything. And my mom would say, "I didn't let him." So my mom was very conservative, always a little worried. It wasn't until I think my 4th or 5th purchase that my mom, when I called her to tell her I did it, instead of saying, "Oh my God, Cindy, another one," like, "Oh my God, are you kidding me?" She went, "Oh, well, that's nice, honey. When does it close?" I was like, "Is that my mom?
Yeah.
What's going on?" And she's actually like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh, like August? Oh, that's good. And it's a good one. You like it?" "Yeah, I really like it, Mom." I was like, "What happened to my mom?" Like, oh, there's this transition, right? So they have to see you succeed before they're okay with it. But your family's always going to be a little concerned, right? So, and it was probably how many properties after that? That one was so 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 properties after that. And that my mom and dad decided to buy one with me. They became my so, and that property has done really well. It's a triplex in like Little India area. Bought it for 488. I put in like 210,000, I think it was, to bring it up to legal and really nice, and to make it a nice, solid, good cash flowing property for my parents and I. And yeah, it's done well. So it's worth over $1 million easily now, and we bought it for 488. Put the 2 in, so we're fine. So, are they rich? This is the problem with older generation. They were brainwashed a little bit to believe that mutual funds and stock markets and that kind of thing were the way to go. Mutual funds specifically.
They were sold.
Bonds, they were sold, right? And it really was. I had many bonds that I cashed in that doubled. I mean, I made good money as I was growing up doing that in the beginning. But, when my dad retired, for instance, he was given like a RSP package, right? And when he told me about that, I guess 12 years after he had retired, it was the same value then that it was when he retired. And I'm like, Dad, he's like, but it didn't lose anything.
No, well, that's not the goal.
Yeah, he lost 12, but it was after the crash and all that, right? When everybody kind of lost. I lost money. I waited till everything got green, cashed it all out, and then bought real estate with it. But, what I did for him with that money is I don't know, he's probably tripled it by now. So it took a while, but I'm really like blessed. I feel really honored that my mom and dad now look to me for advice, and I've been able to help them, right? So are they rich? No, they're fine, and they will be fine. So none of our family's money was ever generational, and I would be the first one to kind of afford that luxury to the next generation in a sizable kind of way. There's been a lot of missed opportunities, I would say, from grandparents to parents of, coulda, shoulda, woulda, and almost, and had, but then lost, and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think rich comes in many forms. And if we have our health and we have loved ones around us, that's more important. But when you have, portfolio properties that are cash flowing and makes it easy for you not to have to work as much, maybe enjoy those people and enjoy that life when you're still healthy. That is really important. It's really important.
So an observation I made recently, which is surprising, it's really recently, is how many real estate investors I know who will blow away their parents in terms of net worth. Like, it's not even close. Their net worth.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. I thought you meant they blow their parents' money. Like they blow it. Like they've blown it out of the water, and their net worth is so much more than the parents, you mean? Yeah,
they'll completely eclipse their parents by like multiple times.
Right. It's the risk. We're risk takers. So the parents were not. Yeah, well, they weren't.
Is real estate risky? We're going to midnight.
Well, if it wasn't, there'd be way more of us on your podcast.
It's effort. It takes time.
It's effort. It's dedication. I mean, there's a subtle amount of risk. There's more risk when you're not as dedicated and you're not as involved and entrenched like we are, right? So if you're just flying by the seat of your pants, then there's more risk. But I think that people, it's easier to put money into a mutual fund because I can click a button on the internet there and it's done, right? Than it is to buy a house. You got to shop for it, you got to look for it, you got to apply for the mortgage, you got to get it, you got to do the renovations, you got to be a landlord and manage tenants, and that's exhausting, right? So it's just like having another job. And like I tell all my clients, I treat every single one of my properties as its own business entity. It has a separate bank account. It has, like, everything is separate. There's no intermingling of anything. All my properties are little businesses, and I have to run them like little businesses. The tenants are the clients, the property is the business. And if you're not willing to work on that business, you have to foster it and feed it and rejuvenate it and water it. Because if you don't, then you're. So I think that our parents they've seen markets that we've never seen, right? I mean, when I started, I said the interest rate was around 9%. They saw interest rates of 20+%. So in their minds, I think that it was like my parents even tried owning an investment property for years. I think they bought that one with my brother and it didn't go so well. I think they ended up breaking even in the end, but they held it for a long time, obviously not Toronto, but, and I think people get scarred, but you're not doing it as a professional investor. You're doing it as just as somebody who bought a house thinking it was going to work.
Yeah.
So I think the key is really education. And back then there wasn't like the Real Estate Investment Network, and there wasn't REIN doing all kinds of podcasts. I mean, the world has brought people, it's so much smaller now. It's brought information to our fingertips. Like, you can find almost anything about anything nowadays, and you couldn't when our parents were doing this. It was just, you were a phenomenon. There were still investors, of course, but it wasn't the way that it is now. So like, education is power, and really anybody who's wanting to do this, the more you're around people like you and me, and you're in these meetups and groups, the more you do that, the more you're inspired to go out and do it. You're like, oh, I can do it. They're doing it. It sounds great. But if you don't have that network and that motivation, inspiration, and passion around you, it dies very quickly. Oh, I want to do it. I want to do it. And then you never go to another meeting and like, did you do it a year later? Didn't do it. Why not? Because you weren't, you got to be around. You got to surround yourself with it. It becomes a big part of your life. Like, it's my life, right? This is who I am. It becomes part of you. Yeah.
I was having the same discussion with my cousin, and how I put it simply on risk was, the bank is pretty good at measuring risk. So
exceptionally good. Too good.
ask them to lend you money to invest in stocks. Ask them for a loan to invest in mutual funds. Ask them for a business loan. Ask them for a car loan. Ask them for a boat loan. Ask them for any loan that you think that you could possibly want money for. At least season tickets, right? Even their own stock. So if you bank at CIBC, ask them how much will they loan you to buy CIBC stock. Wow. Then ask them how much will they loan, what kind of rate they'll charge you for, and how much they'll loan you to buy a house. Yeah. Right? What's the cheapest money they will give you? Right? That's a pretty decent measure of risk, right?
Yeah. So again, I think my last mortgage is refinanced a mortgage. They gave me, not refinanced, but I just renewed it. It was 2.9%.
Free money. That's
like, I don't get those rates. They don't know who I am. I've had that house a long time. So I'm just like, yeah, I'll renew. I'm not going to refinance. But rates are wonderful. And they just held, right? So
it's held. Benjamin Tall doesn't think they'll raise again this year. We'll see. Again, everything depends on Trump, though.
Yeah.
So you talked about full-time as well, and we talked about it before we started recording. So I get questions from people how to go full-time. Can you go back and tell your story, how you went full-time?
Yeah, don't do it.
You just don't want competition.
No, that's not it at all. I remember when I was going to REIN in the beginning, and I had this great full-time job, right? And I was at the time making good money. At the end, I was making over 6 figures and had the company car and the bonuses. And you feel very secure. It's like, the job was like a husband, and everything was covered, and you had benefits, and it was all really cushy and lovely. Yeah. And I'd see all these people put their hands up when they said, "Oh, who's self-employed? Who's doing this full-time?" And I'd be like, wow, these people are crazy, man. I wonder how they're doing it. They must have like 30 properties and they're living off the cash flow. And while it was always a, kind of a goal to start my own business, because I've always had that entrepreneurial little bug in me. I'm driven to do my own thing. I was very happy to work full time and get those continuous mortgages from the bank. I would hear stories about them having to go private lending and secondary lenders, and their interest rates were, 6 and 7%. I'm like, I just got a mortgage for like 2.1%. And they're like, why would you ever spend that kind of money? And like, yeah, and we have an investor that lent us money at 10%. And I'm like, 10%? Oh my God. Like, why would go to work? But, as you build your portfolio and as it becomes a bigger part of your life, and being that I worked in a corporate company, I was McCain Foods Canada, I saw a progression over several years of corporate politics. I never thought it would happen there. I got to be really honest. I thought that, being that it was like a local Canadian company with, really good, solid family structure, I just thought that it was going to be different, that I would never be in the middle of, this corporate entity that was bringing in Boston Consulting Group to see how they could streamline operations. And when I started to see colleagues get fired for stupid reasons, just so that they didn't have to give them as big a package as they should have got after they've been with the company, 20, 15, 30 years, I was like, wow, so I'm just a ticking time bomb. I've only been here, at that point, I think it was 8.5 years or so. So my days are numbered. And what am I going to do? Who's going to look out for me? Because, I'm doing well, and I could do this job at any company, really, but it's going to be the same over there. The grass is not greener. So I'm going to stay. I'm going to bite my tongue and bide my time, and I'm going to keep buying real estate. I was literally the water cooler girl for real estate. Everybody would come to me when something happened in the market. And everyone knew that at, whatever time I left the office, I was doing my real estate portfolio. I was going to Home Depot, I was dealing with trades, I was getting quotes, I was painting walls, I was doing whatever I needed to do, and then get back up in the morning and do it all over again, go to work. And then, so I think I already was doing it full time before I left my full-time job. Mm-hmm. And that made the transition a little easier. Because I kind of knew I was preparing myself. I knew it was coming. I actually stopped putting my name in for promotions at work, which was very unlike me, because my promotion became my portfolio. So every time I bought a property, to me, that was putting money in the bank for the future that I knew was inevitably coming. So, I was there about 11.5 years, and I finally got my ticket, my package, my pink slip, whatever you want to call it. And I remember thinking, I can't wait to see the number, right? Because it was bad timing. I think I mentioned this off Skype. I was in the middle of finishing a renovation and refinancing it. I had just purchased another property and it was closing. And I was in the middle of starting, just finalized a purchase and sale agreement on another one. And I think there was one other that was refinancing. So I literally had 4 mortgages that were all supposed to be in the next month or two. And I was like, oh my God, no, I thought I had a few months and I didn't. So my biggest fear was not, oh my God, I lost my job. It was, oh my God, what's my mortgage broker going to say to me? Do I tell him? Do I even say anything? Because technically I still have a big chunk of money. And yeah, so it was a little bit nerve-wracking in that sense. But I was like, okay, great. I have, a year's salary and whatever else. I'm going to go out and buy more property because this is exactly what I was waiting for. And I seized it as an opportunity. I literally called everybody I knew, in the industry the next day. And I was like, hey, I'm up for hire. You guys need anybody to find you a tenant? Need anyone to manage a renovation? Who needs me to come and check out a job site and give you some advice? And I already was an expert in the industry but I was doing this kind of stuff for free. So I would just help people. I would just be like, oh yeah, I'll come see your project. And I would give them advice and stuff because I truly loved it. Mm-hmm. But when I left my job, it was like, okay, now I actually need to get paid for this stuff. So it's time to evaluate my worth and set rates for what I do. And that was hard, right? Trying to evaluate what your worth is. But it was awesome. So going from full-time in work and full-time in your own business to just full-time business, it's empowering. It's very empowering. And you're never going to think you're ready for it. You're going to believe no matter what, that it's not the right time. And it probably isn't, but you got to take the jump. It's just like buying the first property. It's always there's always a reason why you can wait. There's always a reason why the market's not perfect. Mm-hmm. It's about seizing the opportunity and making it right, making sure it's right for you, not listening to why it's wrong. But I've been this person my whole life. Everybody's like, oh, you can't do that, can't do this. I'm the person that says, find a way to do it because there's got to be a way. There is a way. There's never not a way. There's always a way. So, making it work. So go do it if you want, but there's challenges involved. Make sure your all your mortgages are set up already.
Yeah, I was gonna say that if anyone is considering going full time, make sure you max out your credit and everything. Get the okay from your mortgage person before.
Yeah, And I actually have consulted a lot of couples, and you know that the exit plan is for one of them to keep working and one of them to stay home and do the business full time or stay with children or what have you. So, I'm always helping them structure to say, the one who's going to leave their job first, put all the mortgages in their name first. And then once they're maxed out, they want to stay home, put all the mortgages in the second one's name.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you don't want to do everything so jointly all the time, because now it's binding. You both have that credit exposure versus just one of you, and then the other one can take a step back.
Right.
So there's ways to do it if you're a couple. It's harder when you're single, but it's totally doable.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of being able to put in all those extra days, hours, and
right.
Yeah.
It's doable, and in my opinion, it's only going to get harder. So you either do it now or you wait till it's harder.
Right. Yeah. But having a great team that surrounds you, that helped me so much, because when I left, I had been, investing in real estate for a number of years. So I had my team, and they were all real estate investors, my lawyer, my mortgage broker, my real estate agent, like everybody that I had in my circle that helped me build what I had, they were doing what I did. So it's really, 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 really important to have a good structure,
mm-hmm.
network of people around you
mm-hmm.
that are doing it, because then you have that shoulder to lean on. You have that person you can call and say, okay, I'm struggling with this. What do you think? Or,
mm-hmm.
What would you do? Or what can we do? So that's really, really, really important as well.
So a question I ask everyone that comes on the show, and I usually ask it earlier, is how many transactions do you think you've done in total?
Not that many.
And then how many do you currently hold?
Maybe 16 in total.
Yeah. You don't have to hold many. You're talking big numbers here.
Yeah. Well, it's only 16 houses, doors, I don't know. Right now, I think I have 11. Is that bad that I don't know the number? I could name
all the addresses right now.
It's funny because I, before I was married and all that, I didn't have kids, obviously, and I'd be like, my mom's like, oh, I'm like, Mom, you've got Cassie and Firstbrook and Tiverton and Gerard, and those are all your grandchildren.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Cindy, it's been a blast. I won't keep you. I won't keep you any longer. Thank you so much for your time. I got actually a lot of pages of notes. I pity anyone else who's trying to keep up.
It was really, really nice to be a part of your show, and I'm really humbled to be here, because you're an icon in the industry. You're amazing. You're revered, looked up to. You're such a great idol for people and mentor, and you do so much for so many people. And I'm really proud to be here with you today. Thank you.
I'd rather have your 11 properties. Because I bet they're nice and don't need any work.
It's pretty good. If I'm selling, I can call you.
I don't think I can afford it. Again, Cindy, one last time, Oro Properties is the best way to get in touch with you, follow up?
Yeah, Oro Properties, my website has phone number, email, everything there to reach me and follow me and all that fun stuff.
All right, awesome. And folks, I'll have links to all of Cindy's social medias and websites in the show notes. So if you're driving, keep focusing on driving.
No texting and driving.
All right. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you again.